The beacon was never designed to die like this. It detonated in the soldier's fist, a white crack of light against the gray terrain, and the hunter drone above him screamed static as its sensor array collapsed inward. Then the shrapnel came, and he went down, and the signal vanished from her scanner entirely. The obsidian emitter had still been warm from her own grip 2 hours before he took it, carved smooth by her people's hands across 3 generations of war and rescue, will pass between soldiers like a prayer made solid. She had not wanted to give it to him. Kaylin had told herself that when she woke in the salvage shelter, groggy, bleeding through the hybrid medical patch he'd pressed against her ribs, with the focused, wordless efficiency of someone who'd stitched wounds in the dark before. The shelter was crude, stripped hull plating propped against a granite shelf, thermal coils looped through the ceiling, emergency rations stacked with a precision she didn't expect from a Terran. She'd reach for her sidearm on instinct. It wasn't there. It was on the shelf beside her, placed deliberately within reach. Unloaded, magazine stacked neatly beside it. She'd stared at that for a long time. His name, she'd learned from his kit tags, was Jax. He didn't speak much, just enough. He handed her water before she asked. When the proximity override screamed its alert through the shelter's cracked console and painted both their faces in amber warning light, he looked at the scanner, then at her, and the calculation in his expression was one she recognized from the mirror. Neither of them was mobile enough to run. One of them had to be bait. He'd reached for the emitter before she finished explaining what it was. She told him what the thermal tape would do. Mask his biometrics. Let the obsidian's passive signal broadcast her signature instead. She'd watched his jaw work once, processing, then set. He stripped the tape from her kit and pressed it across his chest without ceremony. "How long does the core hold?" he asked. She told him. He nodded, picked up the emitter, and walked out into the scorched wilderness of Xylos Prime, like protocol had never existed between them at all. Kaylin had counted the minutes against the pulse in her throat. When Vanya's transmission broke through the interference, her sister's voice thinned by distance, confirming the extraction vector was locked to her coordinates. She'd felt something close to relief. Then the amber signal on her scanner blinked once, and died. She was moving before the thought finished forming. She packed the medical supplies. She armed herself. She followed his path into a planet that had been trying to kill them both since before they'd known each other's names. The drone was in pieces. Kaylin found it first, scattered across a blackened crater, sensor housing melted into the rock. Rotor fins bent outward like something had detonated at its core from the inside. She stepped over the debris, and her eyes followed the blood trail beyond it. Jax was propped against a boulder 10 meters further, one hand pressed flat to his side, the other still loosely curled around the emitter, or what was left of it. The obsidian casing had cracked clean through, when charred at both ends. The carved surface her ancestors had smoothed over decades of use was scorched black, the passive signal housing gutted from within. He'd overloaded the core deliberately, fed it enough thermal feedback to blow the drone's sensor array at close range, and taken the shrapnel that followed like it was simply the cost of the calculation. His breathing was shallow but present. His eyes found her without surprise, which told her he'd heard her coming and chosen not to move. She drove the emergency stem injector into the junction of his neck and shoulder before he could object. He made a sound low in his chest. Not quite pain, not quite relief, and his head dropped back against the boulder for 3 full seconds before he straightened again. "Extraction team," he said. "Inbound," she confirmed, pulling his arm across her shoulders. "Which means we have one problem." He understood immediately. She could feel it in the way he didn't ask. They built the cell from an escape pod panel and 2 lengths of boarding restraint in under 40 minutes. His hands steadier than they had any right to be, hers moving faster than her injuries should have allowed. When she locked the shackle around his wrist and met his eyes through the crude frame, something passed between them that had no name in either of their languages. Protocol demanded a prisoner, so they gave Vanya a prisoner. The scout ship came down hard and fast. Artie extraction squad fanning outward with weapons drawn, Vanya's voice cutting across the landing zone before the ramp had fully extended. Kaylin stepped into the open with her hands visible and her chin level, and she told her sister exactly what Jax was. Cooperative, protected, hers to vouch for. In the tone she'd used since childhood, when the decision was already made and the argument was a formality. Vanya's eyes moved to the pod, to the shackled Terran inside it, back to Kaylin. To her jaw tightened, but she gave the order. On the extraction vessel's lower deck, as Xylos Prime shrank to a gray point through the hull porthole, Kaylin opened her palm. The cracked emitter sat in it, retrieved from the boulder, carried back without ceremony. Its carved face was split. Its signal core was dead. It would never broadcast again. She closed her fingers around it anyway. Some things stopped being tools the moment someone decided they were worth more than that.